Hey everyone, well, Mad Kaiser here. Now, Dynasty Warriors Origins was a strong start for gaming last year, and a nice comeback for the series after the last mainline entry, with it scoring and selling well, but now it's returned with not only a pretty good port for Nintendo Switch 2, but also a major DLC called Visions of Four Heroes, a $35 expansion with the potential of offering new additional routes, as well as new weapons, playable characters, and new content. But is this DLC any good, and does it justify that price? Well, that's what I'm here to find out. Special thanks once again to Cody Tecmo Europe for providing me with a review code, especially on PS5. And with that, let's say Zhang Zhao, begin our strategy, and ready our sword once more, as we head straight into Dynasty Warriors Origins Visions of Four Heroes. So the story for this is actually multiple, and essentially serves as what-if scenario. A different path, if you will, if Ziluan, our main character, sided with the other historical figures, with Zhang Zhao, leader of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, being saved before his defeat to continue his revolution. Then you also have Dong Zhuo, the Mad Tyrant, showing his strong ideology with survival of the fittest. Then you have Yuan Shao, the noble but very flawed leader, showing what it takes to be an ideal leader. And Lu Bu.
It's Lu Bu!
It's Lu Bu! It's Lu Bu! Lu Bu's come to destroy us!
It's Lu Bu!
The mightiest of all men, showing that he is the strongest warrior in the land. As well as also Zuha, from the base game, also makes a big appearance here to aid Ziluan in his quest, find the ideal hero that will lead the realm to peace, much like he does with the base game, whatever faction he joined. Essentially, this is basically if Ziluan joined the villain side, basically.
Why? Why are you siding with them?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Now, that is the gist of the story, and for the most part, all of the routes are actually pretty great here, as it keeps the strong storytelling, character writing, and drama that the base game had. But for the other characters, it only just got a little bit of spotlight in the base game, but shown here as the heroes instead of the opposing force, as they got a lot more time to shine here. Whether it's Zhang Zhao, it's more so trying to lead his troops, after his men likely caused chaos without his own approval. Then you have Dong Zhuo showing his ideologies taking center stage, and how that pushes through. And then you also have Yuan Shao showing his flaws and trying to be much more a better leader and less of a coward. It also helps given the fact that the former two were portrayed more seriously and competently written, with their own ideals and tragic upbringings that made them feel like actual characters, instead of the cartoon villain paragons we got from the previous incarnation. All of the routes I think are absolutely compelling. However, the only one I think was a slight little bit disappointing had to be Lu Bu's route, as in terms of writing, it's basically revolving around him just being the strongest warrior in the whole world, and he cares less about peace and ruling. Though Chen Gong, his strategist, does bounce off from that. Zuha also gets some really more interactions here, which is also very nice, and seeing the new heroes bounce off against the Three Kingdoms factions from their point of view is also compelling. Even if the complaints of Ziluan still being a blank state with some generic responses are still present here. The only thing I kind of wished with these routes is that they will last a little bit more longer, as you'll likely have each campaign rounding out about 3 hours at max. But overall, the routes in this are still great, as nice what-if scenarios. Now we get on to the gameplay, which is pretty much the same as it was in the base game, but with some added features and tweaks. One thing to note, however, is that when you jump into this DLC, enemies will scale towards your current level. In this, however, DLC, it gives you brand new weapons, in form of the bow and rope dart, each with their own skills as well as playstyle. With the bow, it basically has two modes, using it as both a close quarters weapon as well as being able to shoot arrows at a distance. And then you have the rope dart, which basically allows you to close the gaps between enemies and do a chain of attacks. Both of them essentially have their own perks as well as learning curves to master. But in the end of the day, they're a very fun new addition. As well as starting with the new heroes, you also get new companions, with the bulk of the DLC having Zuha, who's the most prominent here, and with her playstyle, it's basically the same as a sword as well as Guajia's sword. With, well, packing exclusive battle art that, might I say, is just absolutely badass.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Upon that, you have my beloved Ryo-chan, packing with the rope dart, in both Dongzhou's and Lubu's campaign. As well as you also have a mysterious warrior, who for this review I won't spoil, and he serves Yuan Shao, and he wields the bow. As well, they pack their own Muso attacks, as well as extreme Muso attacks. But what else is brand new would have to be the strategy battle, this turn-based mechanic on the overworld, where you can command your own troops, select on taking down enemy forces in 3 turns, before a big final battle. Defeating these small battles will grant you unit action and secret tactics. The former being using tactics on the overworld, like charging to deal damage, or even recovering to restore your own allies. And the latter being powerful tactics with different effects, from causing a storm, boulders, barrier to negate attacks, restore HP, and even summoning a spirit Lubu. And it's really fun. And what the best thing about this is that they are ready to be activated anytime during battle. Mind you can only activate them once at a time, but still, that is a big improvement. As for the battles themselves, the strategic ones, they range from things like capturing enemy bases, taking down a number of foes, or even taking down a specific enemy officer. Now, while not anything too special, these strategy battles are pretty much a full blueprint for essentially a brand new Empire's title. There's also a brand new skill tree, as well as even new skills for your existing weapons. Overall, the combat of this game is still great as it was in the base game, and these new additions add a little bit more flavor, and do bounce off well. That being said, the issues it does have still maintained for the base game, pretty obvious being that the companions are just only temporarily playable, as well as also that the strategy battles aren't anything to write home about, and you still have the inconsistent checkpoints. However, the biggest flaw with this is something you may have noticed when you've seen the footage, as you're seeing lots of familiar maps. As yes, all of the maps from the base game are recycled here in these routes, and while some of them make narrative sense, it does feel like some corners were cut. Instead of creating brand new original maps, it would have been a lot more appropriate. It's disappointing, though the battles in those maps are still great. Even at the end of the day, it's just relegated to 3 major battles with 2 strategy battles woven in between per route. But all in all, outside of that, the gameplay in this DLC is still great as it was in the base game. Now we get on to the soundtrack. While the DLC does contain tracks that were from the base game for some battles, you also get some really cool new original tracks, which all sound as epic, especially the final battles for all routes, especially Lubu's and Yuan Shao's being my absolute favorite. So as always, here's a lesson. Now, as for what else you do in this DLC, outside of the whole major story battles and routes, what's new is having more objectives with your allies to get more skill. but more notable would have to be the training grounds, which are basically tournaments pitted against enemy officers in various rounds, with each one being harder than the last, going from things like tournaments to weapons training to trials, while also being able to max out your new skill tree, and you can even just freely roam in this inn, which is pretty cool. A run of this whole DLC package could take around say 12 to 20 hours max if you include all the side content. Though sadly, once again like with the base game, there's no free mode at all, which again sucks, but hey, I guess we'll have to wait till Dynasty Warriors be remastered to fill in that gap nicely. Now with that, how was this DLC? And is it worth the $35 price tag or $54 here in Australia? Well, for the most part, I actually say yes, as Visions of Four Heroes does add some new things, from the brand new weapon types to strategy battles, and having overall interesting perspectives from your new chosen heroes, while still having a banger soundtrack, overall strong character writing, and the gameplay being still great as it was in the base game. The only nitpicks I can knock against it would have to be is the recycled maps, the routes not being as long as I hoped, and some problems in the base game do worm its way into this DLC as well. If you enjoyed Dynasty Warriors Origins, then I think this DLC is for you. But if you weren't a fan of Dynasty Warriors Origins that much, I don't think this DLC will fix that. Now the price itself may be a bit steep, so you're free to wait for yourself, that's okay. Overall, I had a blast with this DLC, so I'm going to give Dynasty Warriors Origins Visions of Four Heroes 4 Zuhas out of 5. And with Omega Force in talks of planning to turn Dynasty Warriors Origins into a trilogy, you know what, I'm all for it, as well as also using this, and likely the Dynasty Warriors 3 remaster coming up soon, to build upon for things like future sequels, and an official Dynasty Warriors 10. Anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and shout out to Koei once again for the review code. Let me know down in the comments if you guys played this, or are you curious on picking it up. If you enjoyed this review, then feel free to like, comment, subscribe, as well as hit that bell notification icon if you want to stay up to date for future reviews like this, as well as Dynasty Warriors content in general. I also have a special Patreon page if you'd like to support me there, so you can not only watch ad-free videos, but also get some nice goodies yourself, and you can also follow me on social media. That said, special thanks to my patrons, and Mad Kaiser, out.